Welcome to another edition of Pet Matters. My name is Dorothy Claeys, and I'm the Executive Director at Francisville Home for Smaller Animals right here in Radnor, Pennsylvania. Francisville is one of the oldest continuously run no-kill shelters in the United States, having been started in 1909. Our mission at Francisville is to provide loving care for abused, surrendered, abandoned animals, mostly cats and dogs, while seeking permanent homes for them. So today, we are pleased to be joined by Kristen Tullo, who is the Pennsylvania State Director at the Humane Society of the United States. Welcome, Kristen, and thank you for joining us on Pet Matters.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I have had the pleasure of visiting you at Francisville, and it is just such a special place. So if people haven't had a chance to visit or check out adopting their next best friend, it's a great place to adopt from. And I had a great time visiting there.
Well, thank you so much. We feel really special because of our history, and hopefully we'll just keep doing what we're doing. So now, for those of us who may not be familiar with the Humane Society of the United States, can you tell us a little bit about the organization and what they do?
Sure. I'll start with my very favorite thing about working for the Humane Society of the United States is actually our logo. It is a sampling of 19 different animals that represents the different species that we work to protect. So often our organization is known for our work to protect dog and cats, really the companion animals, but we actually work to protect farm animals and wildlife. And so I think it's always great to let people know that we take on those big fights and really focus on how we can not only work in the direct rescue and care, but how the back end of the laws and how changing those laws to benefit animals really works well together. So that's primarily what our organization focuses on in the advocacy realm and helping to give a legislative voice of protection to our animal friends.
That's great. And I know for a fact it's such a large organization, it's international, and it's absolutely one of the premier animal welfare groups.
Thank you.
So now, in your role as Pennsylvania State Director, can you tell us what your responsibilities are and how long you've been with the Humane Society?
Sure. I went to Penn State for my master's degree, and we had to do a practicum. And so I knew that I wanted to work in animal protection. And so that was something that I took that internship experience to do at the Humane Society of the United States. And that was in their farm animal protection campaign. So I started in a campaign, and at that same time, the state director for Pennsylvania was opening up. So it was just really great timing. And, and there's just sometimes where you say in life, things are meant to be. I wake up every day thinking, starting that internship in 2015 and, now, almost going into 6 years later, I wake up every day just immensely grateful that I'm able to be a small part of giving a voice to Pennsylvania's animals.
Right. And I know you do travel the whole state. Is that correct? So you're responsible for everything done in Pennsylvania.
Sure. A large portion of the role is at our state house. So really making sure that the animal voice has a presence in our Capitol building. And I also love that I get to visit across the state and, connect with advocates and doing grassroots events to really engage more Pennsylvanians in wanting to get involved with that legislative side of animal protection.
Well, I know one of the great events that you hold every year is Humane Lobby Week. And I have to say, I've had the pleasure of attending a few of them in Harrisburg. And it's usually in the spring. And I'm wondering, how are you going to deal with having it in this virtual world that we're living in?
That is one thing that our Humane Lobby Day at the State House every year, they're fantastic. It's a great visual message to our lawmakers that we are constituents in the state and we care about animal welfare issues. So it was really important to us to figure out how do we creatively do something virtually this year. So this will be the first time ever that Pennsylvania is hosting a virtual Humane Lobby Week. And our objectives will remain the same. We'll lobby legislators in support of animal protection, and we'll also do as best as we can to engage individuals and new groups in that advocacy. And one thing I find interesting is that, as it turns out, this challenge of a virtual Humane Lobby Day event or Lobby Week has really enhanced our opportunities to expand from one day, which we normally just did a Humane Lobby Day, to an entire week. And it's also eliminating any barriers that someone might have had with the timing it takes to travel to the State House, the distance, taking a day off of work. And so this seems to really be basically easier for new people to attend.
Yeah, I would think that you would have a much wider audience because I know for myself, I would have to get the train, to go up to Harrisburg. And I love the event, but like you said, it was much more challenging for people to get to. Yeah. So this is wonderful. Now, do you think that, normally you would arrange meetings with the representatives for those who are in attendance. So how will that work now with the virtual system? Do you arrange those meetings?
That is such a good question. And we went back and forth because it is great, when you come to Harrisburg and you get a packet and your appointment times are on there because they're made ahead of time. But being in this virtual world, we felt it was best for the constituent to make their appointment with their state senator and their state representative. We really were mostly concerned with the comfort level of the constituent. So this way, if they're more comfortable doing a meeting by phone, they could do it that way with their legislator, or they might want to use Zoom technology. So that is one thing that allowing that flexibility for the constituent to do what's comfortable for them in making those appointments with their legislators.
Great. Now, if say you haven't attended this event before, can anyone still attend it? Do you need any experience, or can you just sign up for it?
So we actually held a Humane Lobby Week prep webinar last night that is recorded. So we can share that recording with someone who might not have been able to attend last night's webinar. And we really walk through the steps of scheduling an appointment with your legislator. We provide a script to contact the office and really make that as easy as possible for the constituent.
Great. So now if I wanted to sign up and I hadn't done this before, is there a link that you can give us that someone could just sign up for the week? And when is it again? What is the week?
Sure. So it's Humane Lobby Week is October 5th through the 9th. Okay. And we have a different event happening every day that week.
That's terrific. And where could they sign up? On your website?
So they can go to hsus.org. And select the Pennsylvania page, and they can actually email right from there, and we'll send them right from that page, and we'll send them the information that they need for the webinar.
That's terrific and easy to do.
Yes.
So now, what do you hope that someone new who is attending this virtual seminar will take away with them?
The biggest thing that we hope an individual who is new or seasoned to this takes away is the importance of having a relationship with your legislator. I mean, I cannot stress that enough. And if there's one thing that someone takes from our conversation today, it's that your legislators do want to hear from you. You're their constituents, and they represent the issues that are important to you. So if you're not advocating for the pro-animal welfare legislation, I can guarantee that there's someone on the opposite side who might have an opposing view who's advocating in the opposite direction. And so that's why it's so important that we keep that ongoing relationship. And it makes a difference. Last night, State Representative Frank Ferry and State Representative Melissa Schusterman were on our prep webinar, and they talked about the power of your voice and how important it is that they do hear from you, because that is going to help sway their vote in how they should be voting on different issues.
Great. And I think that, the people have spoken on many issues recently and have been able to sway different kinds of elections. So I think that, hopefully everyone can realize that, people will say, oh, it's just me, but it's not just you. You're a part of a bigger picture, and you can certainly make a difference. And, animal welfare is such a huge topic that the representatives and senators are bound to listen at some point.
Yes.
Yeah. So now let's switch gears a little bit and talk about another important part of your job, which is lobbying for the passage of animal legislation. Now, you were kind enough to forward me some of the pending bills that are now in Harrisburg.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Now, for someone who doesn't know how the process works, can you explain, once you present a bill, or introduce a bill, I should say, what is the path that it takes in the judiciary?
Yes. So this can be a long process, and why we have to have perseverance on our animal protection issues, because the process really starts with finding a champion of your bill. So when you have an idea and you see a pervasive issue affecting animals in the state, the champion would sponsor that bill. And, most often that bill will then be assigned to a committee for animal welfare, very often goes to the Judiciary Committee. And from there, the bill would have a vote out of committee. So once it passes out of committee, it would then go to the full floor for a vote. So if that were a House bill and it started in the House, once it passed the House, it then moves over to the Senate, where it's assigned again to the committee, has to be voted out of the committee, go to the Senate floor for a vote. And then once it passes, it goes to the governor to be signed into law or, vetoed. But, on animal protection issues, we've seen a lot of success with those bills being signed into law, especially last legislative session.
So how long, generally speaking, does this process take for each bill?
Well, so our legislative sessions are actually 2 years. So the first year of the legislative session was January of 2019, and that session is wrapping up November of this year, 2020. So any bill that has been introduced in that 2-year period has to be passed and signed into law by this November. If it's not signed into law, the bill is considered to die, and it has to be reintroduced the next session. So you have to go through the process all over again. And why it's so important that we really keep putting, giving the voice to these issues to keep moving those efforts forward every session.
Yeah, so there's no telling how long it could take, and having to start over every time is so tedious.
Yes.
But so let's talk about a few of the bills. The first one I'd like you to talk about would be the Victoria's Law. Yeah. It seems to have good bipartisan support, so I would imagine that it may not take as long as other bills to run through the process. Is that true or not?
Well, this is one, I think this is a hard pill to swallow for a lot of advocates, because this legislation has so much public support. I mean, every media outlet has covered Victoria's Law. We have had the governor who has called for an end to puppy mills in support of Victoria's Law. The Attorney General has enacted a pet scams training program and an email complaint line if someone has been misrepresented in purchasing a pet. And we're starting to see more ordinances across the state, like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia have, to stop the sale of puppy mill dogs, cats, and rabbits in Pennsylvania pet stores. And that's exactly what this bill would do. So it's moving the pet market towards more humane sources. That would be shelters, rescues, and responsible breeders. And it protects consumers from being duped into supporting puppy mills.
Now, have you seen a decline in the number of pet stores around the state?
So we have about 41 pet stores in the state, and we are seeing more pet stores who are wanting to convert to a humane model. So they're starting to work with their local shelter, like Gigi Bites actually over in Chad's Ford area is a good example of that. They have chosen to forego selling animals altogether, and they actually just host meet and greets, adoption events. So we're seeing more of the pet stores going in that direction. And, in 2019, the pet store industry nationally was at $72 billion. And only 2% of that came from pet sales, really showing that commerce with a conscience is proving to be profitable. So that's why, it's really showing that pet stores don't need to sell these puppy mill dogs, cats, and rabbits in their pet stores,
Right.
and really, can make the percentage that they need off of their retail sales.
Well, that's really good to hear.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next one I have on my list. It's the dog law funding.
Yes.
Seems like a great idea. What's your opinion on this one?
Yeah, this is one that is really a big issue in the state right now because the Bureau of Dog Law Enforcement is self-funded, and we know that they are hampered in their efforts due to insufficient funding. But despite their issues around funding, they actually shut down 2 of the kennels that were in our Horrible 100 report last year, and they suspended a license of another repeat offender in that report. So I think that's what's really important to mention here is that they inspect our state kennels, and they also can shut down unlicensed kennels. And that's something that we're very fortunate to have in Pennsylvania. And if we don't increase this small license fee increase, we're talking $6.50 to license your dog to $10 annually, that's going to have really big effects on our animals' health and safety, as well as the public's health and safety.
Right.
So this is one that we are not the lead organization for. We are supporting the Bureau of Dog Law Enforcement in these efforts.
I'm very familiar with the dog warden. He comes here and he inspects us a few times a year, unannounced, of course.
Yes.
So we're always on the ready. Now, do you think I understand that a dog license is not mandatory in Pennsylvania, but do you find that shelters and rescues should promote people get a dog license for their pet once they adopt them?
They absolutely should. I would say the quickest way, should you have a pet that becomes lost, to get them back is actually to have them licensed through the Bureau of Dog Law Enforcement, and to have that support from the shelters, and also sharing stories if they have had someone who's adopted a pet and they did become lost and they were able to get them back through that Bureau of Dog Law Enforcement process. I think that's also another great way for shelters to share those stories.
Great. Well, we'll start doing that. Now, the next 2 bills that I'd like you to talk about should definitely invoke pain in the heart of any animal lover. And I find the practices that the bills are attempting to remedy to be particularly barbaric. So the first one would be to ban wildlife killing contests. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah. So wildlife killing contests are heart-wrenching, and it is an extremely pervasive issue in Pennsylvania. We hold more wildlife killing contests in our state than any other state except for Texas and Oklahoma. And these are organized contests where participants compete to kill the smallest, the largest, or the most of the targeted species. And that's over a specified time period. And they don't harvest the animals. This is purely for sport, cash and prizes. And, we are respectfully asking the Pennsylvania Game Commission to enact a rulemaking process to ban these contests in our state. And a lot of that is also driven by the fact that, this is really something that is not supported by the National Wildlife Management science-based model of conservation that says that animals should not be killed for frivolous reasons. And And so that's why we are asking the Game Commission to take action on this issue. And we're going to have on Wednesday of Humane Lobby Week called What You Can Do for Wildlife Wednesday. And we'll be asking Pennsylvanians to contact the Game Commission and ask them to end these wasteful, cruel, ecologically destructive contests in the Keystone State.
Now, has this bill just been introduced in this session, or how long has it been pending?
So we are trying to go through the Pennsylvania Game Commission right now, which they have the authority to ban through the commission, rather than going through the legislative process. So we're hoping that the Game Commission takes action on this, and by the end of this year, because the majority of contests are actually held in January and February. Mm-hmm. So if that's where we're really hoping Pennsylvanians get behind this and make their voices heard.
Well, who do you think is the biggest opposition? Is it the hunters?
The sportsmen and sportswomen support ending wildlife killing contest, and that's because this is just for sport. They're not harvesting the animals. So if anything, these killing contests are damaging the reputation of responsible sportsmen and sportswomen. So most sportsmen and sportswomen and Pennsylvanians want to see an end to these cruel contests.
Well, let's hope that it goes this term, because it is a terrible thing.
Yes.
The next one is to end live pigeon shoots. Now, I know for a fact that this has been around for many, many years.
Yes.
And it still isn't passed. And it's almost an embarrassment to Pennsylvanians, as we are probably one of the last states who still use live pigeons instead of clay pigeons.
That's right. And, and we, advocates have been working on this for 35 years. And I'll tell you, just in comparison, Maryland recently had a pigeon shoot creep up in their state, and the Attorney General immediately took a position to end pigeon shoots. The legislature introduced a ban, and it passed. And this flew through the chambers because they said, we don't want this happening in our state. And Pennsylvania, it's long overdue to end these cruel contests. And I'll tell you, Dorothy, I've personally been to a pigeon shoot, and it is horrific. It's one of the most cruel things you could possibly witness. And the majority of birds are wounded. They're not even killed. And, if you were to ask my opinion of that too, I would believe that already under our cruelty statute that's illegal. But until there's a black and white statute, a law in place, this is something that Pennsylvania continues to openly and regularly hold.
Right. Now, I understand, too, that sometimes they ship them in from other states because they don't have enough pigeons here.
That's right. So that really defeats the arguments of saying that they're pestilence. It's always, you hear that. Well, and you're like, well, then why would we be shipping them in from outside of the state? So we're raising them for, this purpose. So we really hope the legislature, and I do think that this upcoming session is the year that we're going to be able to get this done. You feel it, the tide is changing, and Pennsylvanians are demanding that these contests end.
Big celebration if this one passes. Many years of hard work.
For so many advocates who have worked so hard long before I got into this movement too. It's just, want to see that happen. Tireless efforts on that. Yeah.
Now, the last one I'd like to talk about is the Animal Protection Caucus. I was so pleased to see this. It's such a great idea. So tell us a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this too, because it's a bipartisan group of legislators who are going to come together and really prioritize legislation based on data. I think it's, sometimes we have to look at the big picture of the most pervasive issues and saying, where are we going to invest our energy to stop the most amount of cruelty? And so this is a chance for us to be able, there's so many different issues. So this is going to allow us to see where we really want to put that energy. And I think this Animal Protection Caucus is going to help to explain the seriousness of these issues. And that's another thing that we're asking advocates during Humane Lobby Week to ask their legislator to join the caucus and learn about how serious these issues really are and why it's important that we prioritize them in Pennsylvania.
Right. Now, if I'm just an ordinary person and I have a great idea, I think,
Yeah.
for some type of legislation, is there a way that I can contact this caucus to get my ideas
Yeah.
across?
And I love that idea, because that is another way that, as Pennsylvanians, we can talk to our legislator and say, this is something we're seeing in our community, our shelters, where we are asking for this to be considered by the Animal Protection Caucus. And what is interesting about that, you have all of these legislators from different areas on there. You could have another legislator. It's like, I'm hearing that same issue in my part of the state. And so this is really a great forum for everyone to be able to, realize, how we can come together on these issues.
So I realize it's a rather new committee, so you may not have contact information yet, but that's something that we can look forward to on your website.
You can actually, you can actually contact your state legislator now. The Protection Caucus is formed, and all you could say to in an email or a phone call is that you're asking your legislator to join the newly formed Animal Protection Caucus in Pennsylvania, which is in the House of Representatives.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
So briefly, I just want to mention, because I know we're getting tight on time, but Humane PA. Now that's a separate organization from the Humane Society, correct?
That's right. Yes.
But one of the things that's so interesting about that is that you can go onto their website and see how legislators are rated and how they vote on animal issues. Is that correct?
Yes, and actually that's where I would advise anyone in Pennsylvania to get state-specific information is through Humane PA. They really are the political voice for animals in the state. So you can find list of pending bills. Everything we've talked about today would be on their website. And because they are the political voice for animals, they are able to endorse candidates. So you can find all of that information on their website as well.
Great. So now I want everybody out there to contact their legislators and talk to them about the animal issues that you feel are important in your area of the state. And that's the only way that we're going to get our voices heard.
That is exactly.
Kristen, I can't thank you enough for being a guest today and sharing the important and interesting work that the Humane Society does. So thank you so much. And if you'd like to give your website information, how someone can contact you.
hsus.org/Pennsylvania.
Terrific. So thank you so much. And thank you out there for joining us on another edition of Pet Matters. And remember, if you are looking for your new best friend, you can check our website at francisvillehome.org to see all of our adoptable cats and dogs. And while you're at it, please join our Facebook page at Francisville Home, where you can monitor everything that goes on here. So until next time, this is Dorothy Claeys for Francisville Home for Smaller Animals, where every pet matters.